Welcome to the Business of Story, where we connect you with the leading minds in the art of business storytelling. Learn from best-selling authors, Hollywood screenwriters, makers, content marketers, and brand raconteurs on how to craft and tell compelling stories that sell. The Business of Story is brought to you by Oracle Marketing Cloud, helping businesses use the latest marketing technologies to tell their stories and connect with their customers. Emma, which provides innovative email marketing tools and services that drive brilliant results. And by Convince and Convert, digital marketing advisors and counselors to leading brands and organizations worldwide. Convince and Convert helps you gain and keep your customers online. Here's your host, Park Howell.
What is more powerful than the theater of the mind? You know, when you hear a story on the radio, in a podcast, or maybe a book on tape, and you develop the visuals in your mind as the narrator takes you on a journey. I can't think of a greater customer engagement and storytelling than that. You know, you look no further than popular podcasts like Serial, The Message, or one of my latest favorites, Myths and Legends. These all grip our storytelling minds and transport us into completely new worlds. I mean, it's really fascinating. One of my favorite advertising mediums is radio for that very reason. You know, I've been in this business for 30 years, and when I first started out, I was lucky enough to be in a small agency here in Phoenix that we wrote a ton of radio spots. And I was always a big listener of radio and radio shows when I was growing up, believe it or not. I would even go to the library before the interweb and check out cassettes of some of the old famous radio shows. I mean, it was just great fun. So radio to me was just a natural place to express my advertising chops. Well, I'm honored to have a guy on my show today who was a mentor of mine when I started in advertising, and he didn't even know it until I let him know about it today. I mean, I literally would stalk or creep this guy back in the late 80s, early 90s, before, again, the interweb, by ordering the cassette tapes from his radio studio called Radio Ranch. He did the most amazing, funny, theater of the mind radio spots around. I mean, he was really at the tops of his game back then. His name is Dick Orkin, and his daughter Lisa Orkin, who now runs Radio Ranch, are both on today's show, and I'm just tickled because this guy has meant so much to me in the growth of my career, especially in the early years. And I still will pull out those tapes and listen to some of his spots because they are literally that funny. Now, on today's show, we are going to cover a few things about writing for the theater of the mind. Here's how it's broken out, really in a 3-act play. Number 1, start with a problem that your customer has. That's the setup. Then you move into Act 2. Make it personal by using your own personal experiences to base your story and to base your scripts upon, and have some fun while you're doing that. And then Act 3, reveal the solution to the problem in a surprising way. And that's the tricky part, the surprising way. These guys do it marvelously. So we are going to cover that in today's show. But before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to some other amazing stars in my life. And these are these fine folks that go to iTunes and give us a rating on the show. In the last couple of shows, I've just been, giving a shout out to a few of them. So I want to do that again today. And I would like to start with Tia for Home, who writes, "This is one of the best podcasts you can listen to if you want to learn how the best storytellers work, think, and especially create and tell their stories. Most are real-world experiences which show us how to tell a story. This podcast is at the top of my list. Give it a listen, and you'll be as hooked as I am." Thank you, Tia for Home, for that. I appreciate that. How about Bupri Coaching, who writes, "Telling a compelling story about our brand has been a challenge, and the podcast gives invaluable resources and information on doing just that. A must for anyone who cares about their business." Thank you, Beaupre Coaching, for leaving that comment on iTunes. I appreciate it. And finally, let's go to Mar Brown, who shares, "I love this podcast. It is my absolute favorite, and I look forward to it every week. I am a forever student of story strategy, and business, and this podcast always inspires me. So thank you all for taking the time to go on iTunes and give me a rating and leaving your comments. It really, really helps me share Business of Story with the world. If you haven't rated and reviewed us on iTunes yet, I hope you'll take just a minute to do so. Much time and effort goes into bringing you these amazing guests on this show, and I appreciate your help in sharing this podcast with your world. Thank you so much for that. Now, on to today's show. Dick Orkin, a little bit more about Dick. He's an award-winning voice actor and commercial radio producer who created the series Chicken Man and the Secret Adventures of the Tooth Fairy. He studied drama at the Yale Drama School and began working in advertising in Chicago in 1963. He gained acclaim with his comedy radio commercials for Time Magazine, GMAC, The Gap, and other clients. His radio spots, which are really mini dramas dubbed by Newsweek as the advertising theater of the absurd. That's what I love about it so much. Advertising theater of the absurd. And he's won many, many, many awards and accolades. He's been inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame, the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame, the Illinois Broadcasters Hall of Fame, the Pennsylvania Broadcasters Hall of Fame, and the Radio Advertising Bureau Hall of Fame. That's how good this guy is. And he's followed in his footsteps by his amazing and very, very funny daughter, Lisa Orkin, who joins us on today's show as well. Lisa now runs Radio Ranch and has a hysterical website called honestlylisa.com with a tagline that is comedy with stretch marks. So that kind of gives you a taste for what you're in for today. So sit back, plug in, and open the doors wide to the theater of your mind with Dick and Lisa Orkin. Dick and Lisa, welcome to Business of Story.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
You know, this is such an amazing honor to me because, Dick, we don't know each other, but what you don't realize is that you were one of my most prominent mentors in the late 80s, early 90s when I first started in the advertising business, starting down here in Phoenix, Arizona. I was a writer for an ad agency, and we ended up doing a lot of radio spots. And somehow I came across the Radio Ranch demo reel, a little cassette at the time. And I listened to the spots on there, and I got to tell you, I laughed my ass off. I thought, this is the best advertising going, theater of the mind. And I tried to get my clients to hire you guys, and I would write some rough script ideas based off some of the work you guys were doing. And my clients never, for whatever reason, had the budget. And I thought, man, how can I work with these guys up there? Well, I never did, but I got to tell you that a lot of the commercials I wrote, and I wrote hundreds of them and won a lot of awards with them, were based off what I simply learned from you and your team.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Well, you said you laughed your ass off, so I mean, Lisa and I are being interviewed by a man without an ass?
That's it. That's so
exactly
weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well, that shouldn't affect
a few times too,
yeah.
So that's what happens.
Yeah, well, an ass isn't essential for an interview. Okay, go ahead.
But anyway, so I was just thinking, you know, we always have story artists on Business of Story from, you know, Hollywood and BBC and whatever. And I thought, you know, a true story artist was Dick Orkin. So I reached out to your daughter, Lisa, you know, a month or so ago and said, is there any chance Dick would come on the show? And she said, well, let me check. And so I just can't tell you what an honor it is to have you here today.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
And I'm curious, you know, we'll play a few of your spots here in a moment for those that aren't aware of your work. How did you get into radio, particularly comedy and humor radio, theater of the mind, and the power of story in business?
Well, I don't remember, to tell you the truth, but I think that somehow it had something to do with my working at a local radio station in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I was hired essentially as a DJ who read the spots, straight spots. We call them brick-by-brick spots. You just keep adding facts to it. It wasn't comedy. And I got a little weary of doing the brick-by-brick spots, so I wanted to do something that had a story aspect to it, a beginning, a middle, and an end, but more importantly, that had conflict and tension, and then surprise at the conclusion of the spot. And when I started doing that it was WLAN radio in Lancaster. When I started doing that, we discovered that more and more of our clients wanted to do that kind of spot. And that grew and grew and grew until finally I went to Cleveland, then on to Chicago, and then out here to L.A. And we just continued doing that kind of spot and only that kind of spot, Lisa and I, all these years.
And is that something that was just innate within you as a storyteller? You knew how to craft them. Did you have any training, or how did you get into story practice?
God gave me the comedy part. The desire to work hard was something innate in me. I was ambitious, but the notion of doing comedy, I didn't even know I could do comedy. But the discovery that I could do humor and I could have fun with it was something that is God-given.
Also, too, my dad's a classically trained actor, so he started off, he was at Yale learning everything you needed to know about storytelling and theater and acting. And so I think if you start off with a really good base of understanding story and approaching it as a theater instead of radio, so you don't sound like DJs. I think that makes a huge difference. So I think that he sells himself short a little bit, but also too, I just think if you look back in his history, he started off in the theater and telling stories, and he loves to tell stories. So. So you understand a 3-act play, you pretty much understand how to write a commercial.
Mm-hmm. And having the conflict and the surprise in there. Now, your work reminded me a lot of Stan Freberg. And for those of the listeners who don't know who Stan Freberg is, he did a lot of work in the Looney Tunes in the early days as a voiceover guy, and then got in the advertising business and did just some really funny stuff. And I felt like there were a lot of parallels between what Freberg was doing and what you guys were doing. Was there any sort of inspiration there, or did you know Stan or do any work with him?
No, I didn't know him personally. I met him on one or two occasions. But Stan Freberg has written a book that is a must-read, I think, for anyone who's going to go into the business of doing commercials, and that's called "It Only Hurts When I Laugh."
Right.
That was his big book, and I think if you read a little bit of Stan Freberg, you'll understand how he got into it. And the other couple was Bob and Ray. I was very influenced by those two as well, but their humor was closer to the kind of thing I like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think in that period of time, there were a lot of duos. There was Nichols and May as well. There was lots of really amazing comedic duos and people. And, my dad's also, old enough to have been a kid during the days of radio where he laid on the floor and listened to stories on the radio.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have much pushback from clients, or did they just see what you were doing and the impact? Because none of your spots come out and explicitly sell. They implicitly sell through the humor and the emotion, which I think is way more powerful. But in this day and age, boy, you just get a lot of pushback, when they think you can't, we don't have time for a story.
Never, no, of course not. No one ever asks, no. Of course, every single client in the history of the world since the beginning of time wants to just hear their name 15 times. I think
make the logo bigger.
Yeah, I mean I think that's normal, and I think that's what clients think. But I think you're not going to go to a doctor and say I'll do the surgery myself. If you want to watch me, that's cool. Clients always push back, and clients always think they know better. And part of the reason they hire us is because we actually know better than they do. They know how to sell a car. We don't know how to sell a car, but we know how to talk to the people they want us to talk to.
The only time I had a problem with humor in advertising was I had a bank came to us and said, we know that you do humor, and you'll probably do a humor spot for us, won't you? And I said, yes, you're right. That's what we do, and we'll probably do a humor spot for you. And he said, well, our bank is a little nervous about that. The only thing that we ask is that you do very serious humor. I never understood that, but we did it anyway.
Yeah. And, I think when the economy's worse and people get scared and they tend to not want to be as risky. Mm-hmm. And I think in the heyday of the Radio Ranch, way back when, they just wanted to be a part of it. So they were willing to take that risk. and I think also there was they understood that it was an art form. And so I think that was a lot of it. And I mean, at this point, I won't even really work with clients if they sort of give me little heads up ahead of time. Like if they go, we want funny but not too funny, then I probably say then we're probably not the right agency for you. Or if they're hedgy in any way, shape, or form, honestly, I sort of go, it's probably not a good fit. So we don't even go down the road. And I think from a business perspective, you save yourself a lot of headaches if you sort of assess it ahead of time.
Here's the problem. Local radio stations have a serious problem hiring people who have the capacity to do story humor or story advertising with a beginning, a middle, and an end, with all of the things that are required for a theatrical piece of radio. They can't afford those people. So one of the DJs usually is selected to be the producer, the writer, and the producer of a commercial, but they rarely wind up being story commercials or humor commercials, because to make that happen, you have to hire someone who has the skill for writing and the imagination to do a story. Ours approach isn't that difficult because we use our own experiences and always have as a way of devising a theme or a story model.
And the story always has to be organic to what we're selling. Like there's just never, it's, a witty, funny doesn't work if it's not actually selling the product. And so if you can use the story to show them why they need something, give them some sort of emotional benefit, then you're doing much better.
The payoff for all stories we do is, of course, the product or the service. If there's a solution, if for example, there's a conflict and there's tension and then there's a resolution, the resolution is a funny resolution, but it's selling the product or the service. That always has to happen. And more people, I'm convinced, outside of local radio stations who can't afford it, more and more advertising agencies understand the extraordinary value of story and humor in advertising.
But it's so hard to do. And, when you're listening to radio in particular, you just don't hear it like you used to, at least in my experience.
Well, the reason you don't, I think, is because money. I think that they're more interested in sales than they are interested in actually. The problem is they're interested in getting, they're thinking very short term. So, a radio station sells ad time to somebody, and then they get that ad time and they say, and for free, we'll throw in some commercials for you. And then they write commercials. And those commercials aren't done in any artful way. They're just sort of like, how quickly and how much can we say the product that makes the client happy. And then what happens is it doesn't really work for them radio, and they don't know why, but it becomes very short-sighted. So if they were sort of looking at it in a bigger picture, they'd go, I'm going to get the client, and then I'm going to do really amazing commercials for them so that it pulls in more revenue for that client, and then they'll come back for more commercials. But I think a lot of advertising people in radio stations, they just want to sell airtime.
Some straight commercials, that is without story, actually do work, and that's because the people listening, because one, the product or service is unique and it's something someone has never heard of before, but they say, I'd like to try that, or they actually are interested in the product, they need that kind of thing. And so a straight commercial can work in those instances, but in most cases, the product or the service doesn't have the kind of quality to it that suggests to the listener that it's something they need to have. It's just someone selling something, and it could be a toothbrush, it could be shaving cream, it could be a piece of furniture, but they don't have any need for it at the moment. And only when you're able to add some story and humor to it do they become interested. And I can't tell you why that is, but it seems to have worked that way all through the history of advertising.
Yeah, it's really the universal structure story. It just appeals to us whether we realize it or not, it seems like. Now, back again when I got started in the late '80s, and I don't even know where I came across your first cassette reel. But this was before the internet, of course. So the only way I could get more is I had to creep on you guys. I literally would call up your office every 6 months or so and say, "Do you have a new demo out? Do you have a new demo out?" And as soon as a demo came out, then I ordered it up and I put it into my library and I listened to it and I researched it. I mean, I really was a student of your demo reels because I figured that was the only way I was going to grow as a storyteller, especially in radio, which was my favorite medium. And I must tell you, my wife at the time, who's now she's an interior designer. She was an account executive at a big agency here in Phoenix, and they did use you it was Jiffy Lube. Remember the Jiffy Lube franchise? I don't even know I guess they're still around, but they had the local franchise back in 88, 89. And you guys created a spot for them. And she came home and she said, "Hey, guess what? We've got a Dick Orkin radio spot." And I'm like, "That's not fair. You get it." And I'm the guy that was looking for him. But what I wanted to do for our viewers or listeners, I should say, it is viewers because it's Theater of the Mind, is can you play one of your old classics for us right now? And for you listeners out there, I want you to stop whatever you're doing. You might be jogging, mowing the yard. If you're driving, don't pull over. But I want you to just stop, close your eyes, and listen to the Theater of the Mind that comes out of one of these brilliant Dick Orkin radio spots. What do you have queued up for us?
I think we have a beer commercial queued up for you.
My favorite.
Billy boy, love the ocean view from this porch of yours.
How would you view 2 Carlsberg beers?
Oh, wow, what a guy.
Down, Booper. Whenever I serve a Carlsberg, Booper gets all excited.
You are a gorgeous doggy. What'd I say?
It's what you did. You reached for your Carlsberg. Booper thought you were going for mine.
Ah.
It's okay, Booper. He's not going to touch Daddy's Carlsberg.
Right, I'm not going to touch it. I don't think he's buying.
No, Jerry. Don't touch my Carlsberg.
I'm not. I was just...
No, that's just part of the ritual. See, I told you not to touch my Carlsberg, so now Booper knows you've been warned, and it's okay.
Good, because I don't... For crying out loud.
It's okay, Jerry. He's just playing. Pick up your glass.
I'm not really that thirsty anyway.
Trust me. Pick it up.
All right, but if this dog goes berserk... I'm not touching his Carlsberg.
You're sitting on the fire hydrant.
The what?
His squeaky toy. You're sitting on it. Get up.
Right, I'm out.
Jerry,
I'm sorry.
hand me that newspaper.
Okay.
I'll take care of this.
Right.
Bad man
Ow.
sitting on
Ow.
Cooper's fire
Ow.
hydrant.
Carlsberg beer, the imported taste that can't be touched. Carlsberg Breweries, Copenhagen, Denmark.
That's beautiful stuff. Roughly what year was that created in?
Oh, I don't know. I think 2000. What? I have no idea.
I have no idea
70s,
either.
80s,
Probably-
80s,
Probably the 80s.
80s. Not a
Somewhere in
clue. We at this point we've done probably 10,000 commercials. So yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, that's just beautiful, and the comedic timing of it, wonderful stuff. So now, Lisa, you have taken over the studio, or actually following in your father's traditions.
Yeah.
What is new at Radio Ranch now?
Radio Ranch still does. We do an amazing amount of commercials. He forced me into it about 10, 12 years ago. I was a stand-up comic and a very happy actor out in the world, and he made me take over. And so I started writing for him. And then the next thing I knew, I was doing commercials for him. And I had been doing commercials for other people for 20 years. And then suddenly, I don't know. I'm not really sure how it happened, but I've been the creative director and the main talent for the last 10 years, I guess. My dad and I have done like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of commercials, thousands together. And he taught me how to write, and then he decided to kind of retire.
That part of this is partly true, but we also there's another member of the talent team, and that's Andrew Meisner, who the engineer who's actually on the board right now, because Andrew has been working on humor commercials for a long while. I can't tell you the exact number of years, but he also has a sense of what makes something a comic and something interesting and fun, and he's as much of a director of that, particularly in the production end of it after we've recorded.
It's a very ensemble production usually here. I mean, that's the I probably do most of the writing anymore, but I have some really amazing writers that I brainstorm with, and then some crazy good actors that I bring in all the time, and Jerry Hauser and Robbie Rist, and just really amazing actors. We like actors as opposed to announcers and VO people.
In fact, in the beer commercial, I forget who the actor was.
Oh, right. He was on Newhart. Tom Poston.
Tom Poston was
yeah. That's right. I knew I recognized that voice.
He was the dog owner.
Yeah. And so that's how I became a part of the ranch. I've been sort of doing voiceover since I was 15 or younger, probably. And I never in a million years thought this is where I'd end up, but it makes perfect sense for me. So, and I've been a storyteller in Los Angeles for many, many, many years on the storytelling scene, and I've done really well there. And so it's perfect for me telling stories is what I do. So whether it's in radio commercials or film or movies or TV or on stage, that's comics. And I do think that like the comedy thing is just genetics. I don't know. It's just the way we look at the world. It's how we deal with our pain. We just see things funny.
Any other questions?
I'm going through your website and I'm seeing exotic dancer for First American Bank. So now how do you use an exotic dancer to sell a bank?
Well, First American Bank, first of all, is an amazing bank that they allow it. But those are those commercials are actually based on my dad, Chris Coyle, and him. And isn't that a grandma spot?
Yeah.
So it's actually a grandma who decides she wants to be an exotic dancer. So that's.
Do you happen to have that available? We could plug it in real quick.
I think we do. Let's see how quickly Mr. Andrew can pull that up.
And Dick, you acted in a lot of these spots as well, right?
Yes, I was Dickie, Grandma's. I don't know what she's to Dickie. I guess the grandson. He's the grandson, and she's.
You got to be careful with that in an exotic dancer spot. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may take a while for Andrew to find.
No, he's got it.
Oh my God,
he's got it
already. Okay, here's that spot.
Exotic dancer for First American Bank.
Okay, Larry, good. Now shake it. Yeah. Shake your booty.
Oh, we have, we're terrible at naming spots, so we'll name like 5 spots the exact same thing. Although that's a funny spot, too. What was that for, Andrew? Yeah, play that one.
Come on, Larry, shake it.
I have no idea what my booty is.
Look, if we want to add on a third bedroom, we need to raise some extra money.
No one's going to hire me to be a male exotic dancer. There must be a better way to raise some extra cash.
Oh, it's just like doing the hokey pokey at your cousin Teresa's wedding.
I was wearing more than my boxer shorts for that.
I'll ruffle your hair seductively.
What hair? Oh. Listen, if we need extra cash, let's just get a fixed-rate home equity loan from First American Bank.
Now dip and spin.
With a fixed-rate home equity loan at First American,
keep spinning.
The rate is locked in.
Keep spinning.
Even if interest rates continue to rise.
Oh, we have to work on that move.
And we can get approval in 24 hours and our money in 10 days.
Really?
First American is the place to save smart and borrow smart. They even offer some of the highest CD rates in Chicago.
Suck in your stomach. Larry?
I am.
Oh, maybe you're right. We'll go to First American.
So I can cancel my liposuction appointment?
No, I'd keep that if I were you.
Okay.
Call 708-952-3700. That's 708-952-3700. First American Bank, the bank that does more for your money. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
So actually, that was Miriam Flynn. And so you know how they use the so you perfectly see there, it's called exotic dancer. But if you have like an old middle-aged man being the exotic dancer, then you're not really offending anybody.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I need to take a break here for a minute and tell some of our stories or have some of our sponsors tell their stories. And I can tell you right now, I got to work on my production value because it's just me reading them.
Okay.
But when we come back, I would love to pick your brain a little bit. And if you could share some insights with our listeners of how we could all sort of fine tune our storytelling abilities, whether it's on radio, on the interweb, on TV, whatever. But it seems to me that there's a dearth of storytelling out there, and we need to kind of reinvigorate it. So if you've got some ideas on how we could do that, we would love to hear that right after these messages. Hey, if you like what you're hearing here on Business of Story, then you are going to love Definitive, the email from Convince and Convert that many marketers say is the most useful resource around. Each day, the team at Convince and Convert picks a topic and sends you the 3 best resources ever created about that topic. It's topical, it's timely, it's useful, so go to definitivedigest.com and subscribe for free right now.
To tell effective business stories means to truly understand your audience, beckon them in with a story they care about, convert them into a customer, and then nurture that relationship for lifelong brand bonding. That's not always easy to do, but marketing automation has made it easier than ever. The challenge is, how do you take all that data and turn it into drama? Well, the marketing gods over at Oracle Marketing Cloud have done that for us. They've created this easy-to-read and easy-to-digest guide called Marketing Automation Simplified Guide. It offers an introduction to the 5 tenets of modern marketing and breaks down the tips marketers need to know to automate and optimize. This includes data in targeting, email marketing, lead nurturing, lead scoring, content marketing, and sales enablement. So to get your free Oracle Marketing Cloud guide, Marketing Automation Simplified, go to bit.ly/Oracle Automation. That's bit.ly/Oracle Automation, and start getting your brand story straight. Hey, I've got a question for you. What's the best call to action button color on your website? Yeah, you probably didn't see that one coming, did you? Well, what's the best shape and sizes of your CTA buttons? And what copy gets more clicks? You know, these questions have interrupted my sleep patterns for weeks now, until I downloaded a helpful new email marketing guide from Emma called Why We Click: The Psychology Behind a Great Call to Action. You'll learn how applying just a little bit of brain science can transform your CTA buttons into small but mighty conversion powerhouses. It covers the button color, copy, and placement that helps skyrocket click rates. Check it out at myemma.com/click. You know, Emma helps marketers everywhere send smart, stylish email newsletters, promotions, and automated campaigns, and to help us all rest a little easier knowing our email marketing is doing its job. So check out their new publication at myemma.com/click.
Welcome back to Business of Story, and my guests today, Dick and Lisa Orkin. Now, Dick has been a mentor of mine from way back in the day, and he didn't even know it. I learned my radio craft by listening to Radio Ranch demo reels back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I did everything I could to kind of be a student of Dick Orkin and their work there because they were humorous. They brought slice of life. It was the best storytelling that I've seen in my 30 years, or I should say heard. It's the best storytelling I've come across in my 30 years in advertising and marketing, and it plays to the theater of the mind, which I just think is a wonderful place to stage any story. Now, Lisa and Dick, before we left for the break, we talked about the rest of us out there that are trying to craft and tell compelling stories. Do you have some tips that we could take away so when we're done listening to this show, we actually could get a little bit better at storytelling?
Well, I have my own personal approach to it. I think we all do. I'm not sure that everyone uses it all the time, but I have a tendency to. When I was out teaching radio writing, commercial writing, I suggested that all stories need to come from a personal experience, not an experience that you've heard or seen on television or in the movies or in a book, but it must be a personal experience, something that you or a member of your family has experienced. For example, if you're going out to buy a car, there must be a story of a problem that you had with a car at one time, either you or a member of your family. And I always try to use a personal story in order to build a comedy situation, a comedy story.
A really good. I'm going to give them a really good example. So, for instance, we were doing a project. We were doing a product called Tiger Balm, and it was about the weekend warriors needing Tiger Balm after their weekend. And so we were all sitting around the conference table, and we were all telling stories about knowing weekend warriors, and all of that stuff. And I said, well, I once had a boss who would work out so hard on the weekend that when we came back from the weekend, he would sit in the conference room and have a meeting with all of us with his feet in a bucket with with like just his boxers on and a towel over his legs, and it was very disturbing. And we would try to get up and run out of there before he stood up, and so we made a spot based on this, actually. Which, can you find the tigers? Oh, we got it, the tiger balm spot. Let's play that because it's based on the story that my boss did this every week.
Sir, I'm a little uncomfortable with the way we've been having our Monday morning meetings.
A little uncomfortable?
Well, extremely uncomfortable with meeting in your bathroom, sir, while you're in the tub.
Well, I'm wearing a tie.
I can see that, sir.
Over the weekends, I play ball with the kids, do yard work, and play tennis, so by Monday, my muscles are very sore. Spending all day in a hot tub's the only thing that helps.
Have you tried?
Wrapping myself in cabbage leaves? Yes, I have.
Actually, sir, I was thinking of Tiger Balm pain-relieving patches.
Tiger Balm, a little jar with a tiger on it?
Yeah, right. Tiger Balm. It's been around for about 100 years.
Jinkies.
And now Tiger Balm comes in these neat pain relief patches.
Could you hand me that duck there?
You just stick the patch on where it hurts. Same Tiger on the package. And Tiger Balm's pain relief patches are very fast-acting and long-lasting, so we wouldn't have to meet in your bathroom every Monday.
And I'd be less pruny, and your report wouldn't be in the microwave.
What?
I dropped your report in the tub, so I put it in the dryer, but it caught fire, so my wife doused it with water and put it in the microwave. Let me just go grab it.
No, don't get up, sir.
Oops, sorry. Sitting back down.
Long-lasting, fast-acting, pain-relieving Tiger Balm patch. Works where it hurts.
So that's using personal stories and personal experience to actually organically sell a product.
Well, and the nuances of that spot, too, with the splashing of the water, the jinkies, comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, which that was probably...
a little bit about the boss.
Yeah, that was probably improvised. I would say that we do a fair amount of improvising. We do probably a script... We write a script with the full intention of doing it as written, and then once we get in studio, that falls apart a little bit, and we start finding funnier things.
That seems only natural, especially since you're calling from personal stories, personal life. What else could you use? You talked earlier about story structure, the beginning, middle, and conflict resolution. Is there a process people can go through when they're piecing together their stories, or again, does that just kind of come naturally?
Well, you need to start with a problem. At least one or two people have a serious problem. You can do this as a monologue as well, but usually two people have a problem. One has one point of view, the other has another point of view, or there's an irreconcilable difference about an approach to something, and they get into an argument about it, and then the tension builds as a result of that. There's a conflict, in other words, and tension builds as a result of that, and the resolution of it, that is the finish, needs to have something to do with the product or service
solving the problem,
and that's the best use of a commercial product or service.
So I think that whether it's I'm huge into online marketing, and I'm completely mystified at the inability to most online marketers to not do anything but just say what their product is. So I think that storytelling is so important. And if you look at some of the most amazing online marketers, like Marie Forleo, who teaches a business school, they tell their story, and they tell it from a really human, authentic way. And I think you just have to take out anything that's extraneous and tell the story. So with like a 60-second spot, you need 3 acts, but with like a 30-second spot, you cut out the first act and you just have the problem and then you solve it.
You just get right into it.
Yeah.
Yes. The improvised story is always sounds like it's phony. It doesn't sound like real people in a real situation. If you're just going to, or if you're going to say, hey, that was a funny story that I saw on television last night, I'll just use that. It doesn't work. It needs to come from some honest, authentic place in the human psyche and in the human experience. Or I think the better phrase for it is the human condition. Everybody has a problem. Everybody needs to solve the problem.
And right. And actually, before we even get to the brainstorming part, which is the fun part, we research the product and we figure out the demographic, who we're talking to, what every single thing we can figure out, every part of the strategy, everything that we know that the product or service is going to solve. So we make sure we have a complete understanding before we even get into the creative. We need to know everything about that. And sometimes while we're doing that, ideas will come to us. But I think if you don't, you have to really, really understand what you're selling and why you're selling it. And if you don't know the why, I think that's when the storytelling gets difficult.
Yeah, I agree that too many spots are simply, if someone wants to use humor, they tend to ignore the important aspects of a product or service. It usually has something that is unique, something that is different than any other comparable product or service. And if you don't find one, you've got to find one. That is, if they don't give it to you, you need to develop one. We did a commercial one time for a adding machine. What do you call those? The
calculator.
He knows what it is. Andrew knows what it is. With little pads that were on the back, and they wouldn't slip off. I can't. No, I shouldn't have brought that one up because I can't remember the name of it.
But I think the whole thing is that you have to be able to really, really understand what it is you're selling. And I think that without understanding the why, it's hard to move on to the brainstorming and really find stories that are real. They have to be real. I mean, obviously we go really goofy with it, but they're based in a real thing. So.
And are you finding advertisers these days as prone to storytelling as they used to be, or do you find is it a harder sell to get them to do it?
Well, I don't think they come to us unless they want storytelling. So if they come to us and they don't want storytelling, then I would say that would make no sense. And every once in a while, something will fall through the cracks, and they'll go, "Wait a second," and I go, "Oh, we're a bad fit." For those, I mean, what's the point of doing that? It's not about getting as many. My theory is that, and I know I learned this from my dad, but I think it's a really good theory, is that you want to create the best commercial possible, and you want them to believe that you are doing the best commercial possible. And you're not doing the commercial for the client that hires you. You're doing it for the people who will buy their product or service. And so pleasing the client they're not usually the consumer of their own product. So they come to us because they want us to tell a really good story to help them get more people to use their product or service.
Yeah, some clients will say, "Well, I didn't get that. I didn't think was that funny." Well, the funny wasn't intended for them. It was intended for the demographics of the people that they're selling it to, and too many advertisers forget that. They think they're the buyer of the product or the user of the service,
right.
And they're rarely the people who we're selling it to.
Yeah, I mean, rarely does a car salesman ever go out and buy a car. So they're not the person we're talking to. So, yeah, I mean, I think that if they want to water down our commercials enough that they're not working anymore, I'd rather just say, let's just call this right now, because it's not going to work for you, and it's not going to help us in any way either for you to have a bad commercial on the air.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to really go out on the edge here, and I'm going to ask you to do me a huge favor and honor. I would love to play a spot for you that I did. I mean, I think this is circa 1993, maybe. I was working for another ad agency, but again, this was a result of all of my efforts to absorb the Orkin Radio Ranch ethic to storytelling. And this happens to be for a roofing contractor here in Arizona who had a tremendous sense of humor. So what I'd love to do is play the spot for you and get your take on it from a storytelling standpoint.
Go ahead.
Fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let her roll.
So Ma says, "Michael, paint the nice father's ceiling." I figure Navajo white. The man wants a fresco. So here I am, flat on my back, 5 stories up in the Sistine Chapel, and the roof leaks.
Hey, Michael, what's the matter you?
Father, ever hear of Robinette Roofing?
Robinette who?
Robinette Roofing. They got a foam and coating roof system that's guaranteed to fix this old leaky church.
I don't know. I get a lot of roofers in my confessional.
But Padre, Robinette's roof will insulate and protect you for at least 15 years.
15 years?
Guaranteed. A trusted name since 74. Give him a call for free inspection and estimate.
Got that number, Mr. Wise Guy?
443-1666. That's 443-1666.
I got it.
Peace of mind, Father. That's what Robinette Roofing offers.
All right already. You don't have to preach.
Look who's talking.
Well, did someone actually have that experience? Was that a true experience, or was that just something improvised?
So
well,
here's,
it was, we don't know what happened to Michelangelo in those days. It wasn't easy, I'm sure.
Well, but if it's Michelangelo you're talking about, he's not relatable to the audience. They don't know Michelangelo.
They want to know about their own roof.
Yeah, you need somebody who's going to sound familiar to them, not somebody who's doing voices that aren't even part of today's culture. It was an interesting spot idea, but it's all voices, and the voices detract from the story.
Okay.
They detract from the objective of the advertising, and only if you can hear real people sounding like real people, not with accents necessarily. We rarely use accents in spots. That's not to say we never do, but we rarely use them because we want people to believe that they have to do with their own lives and their people they know.
So, I mean, I think it was an interesting premise, and I think that if I would have gotten that from a writer, I would have thought that this is a really interesting premise, and I would have probably said, could we make somebody think they're their own Michelangelo, like they're painting their own ceiling really beautifully, and it's a giant thing, and they're making their own personal Sistine Chapel in their living room. And then I think it brings home to, like, you don't want to screw up your own home. You want your roof to do that. If you've just decorated your whole house and you're getting leaks, then I think that would be my take on that. But I do think that it was an interesting premise for sure, and I probably would have changed the mix a little bit. That would be my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate the input, and thinking back on the day when I did it, I definitely was going for the entertainment value where you're talking about a little bit more the immediacy value of now switching that and bringing it in someone's home.
Exactly.
So, like, the guy's up there painting, and the wife is like, what are you doing?
Because it's
Who do you think you are, Michelangelo?
Yeah, because if people want entertainment, they can go to the movies. Our job is to actually sell a product. And so the way we sell a product is to pull people in. We want something so compelling and so close to who they are as a person that it makes them listen to it because it's relatable, and it's compelling because it's about them, because people love to hear about themselves.
I mean, if a man came back from Italy and he said, Lisa, I saw the Sistine Chapel. It is so beautiful. I think what we should do is paint our whole ceiling to look like the Sistine Chapel. I think I can do it. I'm just not sure what paint to use. But if you hold the ladder for me, I think I could do it in about 7 months.
That's okay, honey. If you do it, could you do it around the leaks? Because...
Oh, yeah, the leaks? Oh, that's right. That's why I'm doing this. I forgot.
Yeah, because you could have lost a whole face of, like, Jesus there.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We lost Mary in the living room. Yeah.
Yeah, the closer it comes to real life and to real people, the more likely you're going to find that the listener will pay attention to it.
And not to say that, like, superheroes, we relate to superheroes when we watch them in the movies because they make them very real. They always have an alter ego, right? There's always some really dorky guy who then happens to be a superhero. And so I think that's why we relate. We wouldn't buy a superhero if they weren't relatable to us, that we could possibly be that person. So I think you can.
Yeah, what a terrific insight.
Right. I think you can go to the absurd, and you can go really wild and crazy as long as it has a human experience to it.
A real human experience. That
Right.
is something that could happen in anyone's home. Not another time, another era, another culture. That's why I've never liked stories about Christopher Columbus. I've never liked stories about Genghis Khan. I've never liked stories about people in another era, another time, because we can't relate to that. We didn't live then. We live now, and our problems are now. But you can still have fun with it by, for example, in the spot that you just did, by a guy simply saying, I think I'd like to paint the whole ceiling of both rooms like the Sistine Chapel. There's more problems that are going to come with that than with people imitating the Michelangelo and his painting of the Sistine Chapel.
Right. And a leaky roof, man, that can be the most annoying. We've had a leaky roof in the radio ranch for 10 years. I think we just solved it. Andrew, did we just solve it? We believe that we have solved it. But honestly, the idea that you can lose your mind trying to fix a leaky roof, I mean, literally, the leak can change at any time and come out of a different place, is mind-boggling.
Yeah, they're totally shapeshifters.
Yeah, they are shapeshifters, and I think that's it. It's like you almost feel like someone's messing with you. And so I think that there's so many good stories in something like that. I mean, not that we don't completely go to the absurd, and we like to have fun. We did a spot for Regional Help Wanted where you were a dentist, Dad, and you hired me. And because we've had so many different receptionists here at the ranch, we've had lots of experience with people, especially in Los Angeles, who really want to be something else other than working here. But we were able to go very sort of absurd with it. And so let's play this one. We're going to play you a spot. It's for regionalhelpwanted.com.
You're not a dental hygienist?
No, Dr. Snarman, I don't know the first thing about it.
Why did you answer my want ad?
I was looking at the personals on that free internet site, whatchamacallit list, when I saw your want ad and thought, hey, that could be fun.
Free internet classified ad sites may be free, but do you really want your ad listed along with singles, used cars, and puppies?
But you didn't study to be a dental hygienist in school?
No, musical theater, so I can sing and dance and entertain all your patients.
I don't need my patients entertained.
If you need a qualified employee, you need regionalhelpwanted.com.
Open your mouth, ignore the pain, you're gonna get some Novocaine.
I need a dental hygienist.
Teeth don't hide, mouth open wide.
With regionalhelpwanted.com, you can peruse resumes of qualified employees 24/7 and avoid those people looking for puppies, used cars, and...
Turn on the drill. Wow, that's shrill. Here we go. Fill.
This is fun.
regionalhelpwanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
And so with that client, we had a lot more copy points to deal with and a lot more, but we were still able to tell a story based on what it is they need. And so I think that's the point.
So why do you think we're not seeing storytelling, especially in content marketing, as much?
Well,
Is it that there's just so much going on and feel like they're so quick to push content out that they don't take the time to create those stories? I mean, that's kind of a sense I get.
Yes, and yes. And so because I'm a huge content marketing person, I think that, first of all, you got everyone out of their second bedroom doing content marketing. And so they have no background in crafting or art. I also think that all the online classes teach like a specific sort of framework on how to do it, and they all just sort of follow that framework, and so the creativity gets left out. I also think that 90% of the content marketers out there are good at what they do, but they shouldn't be doing their own content marketing for their products. So I think, you have all of these people doing their own content marketing instead of hiring experts to go, hey, let me tell your story in a different way. And I think also the bottom line is not everybody can tell a story, and that you really have to, between all of the writers and actors and people who have worked at the ranch, everybody is a storyteller that comes from the world of theater and acting and comedy. And so, and then my dad and I and a lot of us, it's like I can hire comedians to come in and write for us, but most of the time they don't understand the advertising. So that makes it that very difficult. And I think that there's an art form to it. And I think that content marketers don't understand the art part of the advertising. And I think telling a story, it's like the first time somebody writes a story as a storyteller, they write a story about themselves. And then eventually they can write a story about themselves where it's not completely about themselves, that it's more universal and it shifts and it changes. And I think when you have a glut of people on the market doing so much content marketing, that's why there's such a huge opportunity for people who can do great advertising online, on Facebook, on Pinterest, and everything else, that with an image you can tell a story. And I think people miss that boat all the time too. Instead of, get your car wash here, show a car that needs washed really badly.
I've always wanted the people who are listening to radio to say there, but as they hear a commercial, they say there, but for the grace of God go I. We want them to identify with the characters in a commercial and say, oh, that could be me. I could have that problem. Oh, what if that was? Oh, I don't know what I would do if I were faced with that. If they can't do that, then the commercial as an advertising piece doesn't have any relevance for them. To just invite and just to improvise something that makes it impossible for the listener to say, "Oh, that could be me," is not a very useful commercial and not a very relevant commercial.
I also think too the reason that the content marketers that are really successful, they know how to tell a story really, really, really well. So like a Danielle Laporte, who to me is a masterful marketer. Is a masterful marketer because she actually understands the marketing and the advertising behind it. And I think that's a problem. It's like you can tell a witty story, but the witty story is not going to catch people or sell anything unless you understand what the marketing is. And so I think that's why we have such a hard time with online marketing. So that's my theory.
I agree.
Thanks, Dad.
So Dick, are you completely retired, or do you show up and do cameos with Lisa on some of your projects?
You said it, that last thing, yes.
That's what he does.
That's
he does
do.
Cameos. If I can get him here and get him on a spot, I will, and he'll come in, he'll do a spot, he'll give his 2 cents, and then we'll go to lunch.
That's it.
Do you have one last spot you'd like to share with us that really celebrates that father-daughter team?
Oh, you know what? Hey, Andrew, how about So Proud? How about one of those? I think there's the bank one or the Toyota. Or no, maybe Keystone.
Yeah, I know we kind of throw him curveballs here.
And this,
I just really...
Well, he has a system that allows him to find it pretty rapidly.
And this spot is really based on my dad handing me over the rain.
And while he's looking for that spot, where can people learn more about you?
radio-ranch.com. They can go there. They can go to our Facebook page, the Radio Ranch Facebook page. They can go to honestlylisa.com as well, which is all comedy, and there's a podcast attached with that as well. So there's all kinds of places they can go to learn more about the Radio Ranch. And Andrew has the spot.
All right.
Sweetie, I wanted to talk to you about buying a new car.
Dad, I already have it covered.
I know, you're a college graduate with your own business, but there's still a few things you can learn from your old man.
Okay.
Like where to buy your new car.
Toyota Carlsbad.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I know you buy your cars at Toyota Carlsbad, so I thought, well, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, so okay.
Yeah, and it's an amazing time to buy a new car.
Well said. My little girl is growing up.
And there are amazing deals out there with great incentives.
I'm so proud of you.
With very competitive pricing.
So proud. When did you grow up?
Probably when I turned 40.
My baby is 40 and has become a loyal Toyota Carlsbad customer. I'm overwhelmed. You don't need me anymore.
Not true.
No, you don't.
I do.
For what?
I need you to be my dad.
Oh, there you go again. Such a grown-up thing to say.
Toyota Carlsbad.
For big savings on new and certified used Toyotas, visit Toyota Carlsbad today. I-5 Cannon Road, Car Country, Carlsbad.
And there you go.
Oh, that's beautiful. So time for one last story. Before we jumped on this episode, you were talking about Chicken Man. And I had to admit, I don't know from Chicken Man. Is this how Radio Ranch came about? Can you tell us about Chicken Man and where we can learn more about Chicken Man?
When I was at WCFL Radio in Chicago, I was asked to do something that sounded like... Do you remember when Batman and Robin did a campy kind of television version? This was in I guess, the 70s or 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was asked by my program director to do another something similar to that. So I created a superhero based on a guy who wore a chicken suit and called himself Chicken Man. And the Chicken Man played, I think, almost in every radio station throughout the United States and even in Europe.
And overseas during Vietnam, the Armed Forces Network played it. It was very popular there as well. Chicken Man's 50 this year. He's 50 years old. Wow. But it preceded the commercials, really, Chicken Man. And so Chicken Man, sort of the idea of doing little radio dramas is where that started. And then
they're about 3 minutes or 4 minutes in length. And each episode is he's a guy who decides with his chicken suit that he'll go into a police commissioner who works in a city called Benton Harbor, and is that right?
Yeah.
And there he will fight crime and or evil, as he calls it. And I don't know if you have a Chicken Man there. If you don't, it's okay. You can hear those by going to our website.
You know, people post them all the time, all over online illegally, but you can always find one. And
I just searched it. Got a whole front page here of 10 Chicken Man links, right?
Yeah, there you go. And so Chicken Man, and I would say that at least 3 days a week I get a email or a phone call of somebody wanting to hear some Chicken Man. And so Chicken Man, loved by millions and millions of people in the late 60s and 70s. And then people still to this day, when they find out, I've even like done stand-up at the Comedy Store, and I've gotten off stage and somebody's walked up to me and went, "Are you related to Chicken Man?" And so, yeah, it's huge. Yes, I'm related to Chicken Man.
Oh.
Yeah, check our websites, because you'll find some episodes on theirs.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
I would like to thank you both for being on the show again. It's such an honor, Dick, to have you here, and Lisa,
My pleasure.
I'm so glad that you are carrying the torch forward with the Radio Ranch and the wonderful work you all do there. It's just been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to do it, and good luck to you.
Well, thank you, and I would like to thank all of you tuning in to this episode of Business of Story. If you like what you hear, please visit iTunes, give us your star rating, leave a comment, and when you do, you help share this story, this show, and the Orkins with the rest of the world. So please do us that favor, and join us every week on Monday when we will launch a new episode of Business of Story. Until then, have a wonderful life.
Thanks for tuning in to The Business of Story. Don't forget there are terrific free storytelling resources for you at thebusinessofstory.com, where you'll also find the complete show archive. The Business of Story is sponsored by Oracle Marketing Cloud, Emma, and by Convince and Convert, and is produced by Convince and Convert Media. Find more great shows like The Business of Story at marketingpodcasts.com, the first search engine for marketing podcasts. Podcast imaging by AudioBag.com.